Good afternoon and welcome to Conversations on Showing Up for Kids. My name's Tim Markle. I'm director of the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs. We cover 14 counties in southern and southwest Wisconsin, as well as thanks to this thing called the internet, we have people from all over that join us for these conversations as well. If you don't know, the Weisman Center is centered on the campus of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and that is rather important for today's conversation. So today we're going to be talking with Anabell Ramos. Anabell is a doctoral student in school psychology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's also part of this really awesome program that hopefully maybe we'll get a chance to chat about a little bit, Esperanza at UW-Madison. So I am just so excited that you are here, Anabell. Welcome.
Hi, hola a todos. My name is Anabell, as Tim said. I am a school psychology student in the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm a doctoral student. I really enjoyed being in this program. I have a big passion for school psychology and improving the lives of students with autism. So I'm really thankful to be here and to present on some of the research that I've been working on and some of the research that has existed in the past. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So before we dig into the research and what you found out, how did you become interested in autism and in psychology? What brought you to this point?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I became interested in psychology because I recognized that there was a need for breaking the stigma in mental health and breaking the stigma in the Latine families. I'm going to be talking about that in this presentation, but I became interested in that and basically breaking that stigma in Latina families. I used to work at an OT clinic, an occupational therapist clinic, for 5 years. And throughout those 5 years, I noticed that there was a pattern that a lot of families, specifically Latina families, that they were often not given the resources that they needed. And they often came to the office and I would talk to them and they would basically say that they don't know what to do and that they're worried and concerned, and they would express all these challenges that they had to deal with and that their child had to deal with in schools. So I really empathize with that and I really want to change that. So I became interested in school psychology and got accepted here, and now I'm doing my work here.
Where did you do your, so just so you guys know, as I talked to Anabell before, and I said, these are the sort of questions that I'm going to ask. So now I'm going to start to ask her questions that I didn't tell her that I was going to ask. So that's just the joy of working with me.
Yeah.
Where'd you do your undergrad, Anabell?
I used to live in California. I was born and raised in California. So when you talked about tornado sirens, I was so confused because I hear them in the background. So I was so confused on what that was, but now I know. I did my undergrad at California State San Bernardino, and I got my bachelor's degrees in psychology and human development. And then I moved to Wisconsin for my doctoral program, and now I'm here.
Excellent. Well, welcome. And you made it through a winter.
Yes.
That seems to never end.
Yeah.
We're hoping that we have now turned the corner, but I'm pretty much, I think now I can guarantee you that we're done with the snow until next fall.
So
Maybe. So apologies for the Wisconsin weather that you've had to adjust to.
Thank you.
So why don't we go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you've learned. I know that you've been digging into this, and so just let us know what you know that we should know.
Yeah. So I'm going to be talking about the barriers that Latine families face in autism services, specifically in their diagnostic services and their access to services. Like Tim said, that I am part of the Esperanza program, which has a community partnership with Centro Hispano. And that's a nonprofit organization in Dane County. It's one of the largest ones in Wisconsin. So I'm really fortunate to be in part of this and to have that community partnership. So I'm really excited to be presenting on this. So I made a couple slides based off of some of the research that I've seen, but I'm open to have conversations with you all and to hear the other people's advice or opinions or anything that you'd like to share. So I just put up an agenda. So first I want to start off with an icebreaker. I'm going to talk about autism in the Latina community, the barriers that they face, suggestions, and then finally I'm going to end with what we can do to help that. So I have a QR code and a link here. If you could go to this link here and type in ABRAMOS 880. What this is we're gonna do this icebreaker, and the purpose of this is to celebrate everybody, to celebrate and recognize people's differences and similarities, and kind of reflect on what you identify as or what you are. So the prompt for this is I am. So you're gonna fill in this blank here. So an example of that would be, for like me personally, I would put like, I am a student. I am a first generation student. So that would be what I would put in. If you could put in this link here, I can also put it in the chat too.
Yep, I did go ahead and I put the poliv.com/home in the chat. Then you'll just need to enter the ABRAMOS 880 to go ahead and take part in it. I'm sorry, Anabell, I was doing all this. How many answers did you want?
You can type, I think I gave permission for everybody to put in as many as you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And here's the code. I'm just gonna stop sharing and go to the next. Give me 1 second. Just gonna give everybody another minute. I love that. This is called a word cloud, and the more answers that you put, like that everybody puts in that's like common, it becomes bigger. So there's a lot of teachers here, a lot of moms. Cool. So like I said, the purpose of this was to celebrate everybody's similarities and differences. As you can see in this little word cloud, a lot of people are teachers, a lot of people are bilingual, they're mothers, professionals, they're advocates, they're happy, I love that, your dad, parent. Cool. Thank you so much for doing that, for participating in that. Let me just go back to my slides.
That was really rather fun. I will probably connect with you after to say, tell me all that stuff again so that I could do it on later stuff. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me switch back to my slides. Okay, so thank you so much for doing that. Like I said, we were able to celebrate everybody's differences and similarities. So I'm really appreciative of that. So starting off, I wanted to talk about autism in the Latina community. Specifically, starting off with the Latina community is one of the largest ethnic groups in the United States. And we're projected to grow in states like Texas and California by 50-50. So the population is constantly growing, which is crazy because 2050 is only like 30 years away. So it's kind of surprising. In the Latin origin, Spanish is one of the most common languages, and it's one of the second most common languages in the United States. Given that there's a growth in the Latina community and in the language of Spanish, it's important that services and access to these services are culturally responsive. So that includes things like recognizing somebody's culture and recognizing that there's the language differences, and to be more aware that there's culture involved in services as well. And this includes like being diagnosed with a disorder or being having interventions as well. So in the continuation, I'm going to talk about autism and Latinas. Given that autism and Latinas, there's underrepresented. They're very underrepresented in the literature. There's only a small amount of literature that talks about Latinas and autism. However, there's new research that shows that, according to the CDC, that more children of color, specifically Blacks, Asian and Pacific Islanders, and Hispanic children, are diagnosed more than white children now. This is surprising because, or this is new information, because back then, before this data was collected, I believe it was collected from 2018 to 2020. Before this time that it was collected in, children of color were diagnosed less than white children. And so now the new research shows that more diverse children are being identified with autism more. So specifically for Hispanic children were shown to have a 3.2% higher than white children now. And this could be due to improved screening and Autism Services and an increased awareness. More people are being informed of the symptoms of autism and how it is in early childhood, the developmental milestones. So more individuals might know more about autism and the symptoms. And because of that, there's more of an increased awareness in services for autism and being diagnosed with autism. If anybody has any questions, like, feel free to like ask me or anything. I'm really open to having a conversation too. So given the for diagnosing and accessing services, one of the biggest challenges is the perception and knowledge of autism. So according to research, many Latina families have heard very little about autism. And this could be due to some of the cultural differences and milestones. Many Latina families have different perceptions of milestones. They might have more years for independence regarding their child. So some things that might be considered developmentally normal for Western cultures might be considered different for other cultures. And for example, for the Latina community, they might consider things like getting dressed and getting ready to be to have somebody to have support with that later in life. So if a child is displaying symptoms, they might not recognize those symptoms until later on. So that's interesting. That's one of the cultural differences regarding Latina community. Another thing is the mental health stigma. I'm going to be talking about mental health stigma later on within this conversation, but I just wanted to touch on this, that there's a lack of mental health support in the Latina community, and that for mental health, there is, for mental health in the Latina community, many Latinas might perceive mental health as, for children, they might perceive it as a personality trait rather than, they might refer that as a personality trait rather than a behavioral or emotional concern. So that's really concerning, because a lot of children who have mental health issues or mental health challenges and who have autism, they might perceive this as as just a regular personality trait rather than a concern, and they might not be able to get access to these services early on in life. Another perception and knowledge of autism is in the Latina community would be religion. So in the Latina community, religion plays a big role in their families, in the community. And so according to this article, that may delay their access in accessing care, and this might involve conflicts with the provider and with the families. So because of that, that might limit their access to services and to being diagnosed, because they might not have that. They might reflect more on the religion rather than getting services. So all in all, many individuals from the Latina community, they might have very little knowledge and might not be informed as much on the topic of autism. So it's really important that individuals know about this, and that there are more, sorry, I'm blanking on my word, that the individuals are more known about this. And I'm going to be covering like more of these like later on.
So Anabell, it strikes me as you were sharing those, is as we talk about some of those cultural differences, such as maybe the milestones of getting dressed, the importance of religion, is that one of the things that strikes me that may be sort of a barrier is that these are also some strengths. Having a strong religion, having strong family support, watching out for each other, accepting each other for who you are, those are really strengths. Do those strengths sometimes like mask the difficulties then?
Yeah. So thanks for that question. Yeah, I do. That is a strength, of being aware of like their culture and being aware of the religion and the community as well. However, I think what I'm trying to say is that like because, sorry, I'm blanking on my words. It is a strength that they're aware of their culture and that they're more religious and they value their family. But they also have little knowledge of, or sorry, they also have less likely to be informed of like the symptoms of autism. And that's like concerning because they might not know what the developmental milestones of autism are, and that could limit their access to treatment, for future treatment, and for access to services as well. Thank you for that question. So some other barriers to the autism diagnosis in the Latino community. The first one might be the communication barrier. So given that language is the most common language in the Latina community, the sorry, that's a typo. They might have a limited access to language services, especially if they only speak Spanish or if they only speak another language, that they have limited access to services, especially if the provider only speaks English. So because of that, they might not know how to express themselves or express their concerns, and the providers might not know how to respond to that. There's also limited services in certain states. I know for like counseling and for psychology, for mental health services, it's very limited, and it's also the same for services for autism. In this study here, they talked about some of the communication barriers, and one of the things that they mentioned was that they had unmet therapy expectations and they had unmet therapy needs. So the provider wasn't meeting their needs and they weren't able to get more help. Another thing would be immigration status. So because of their immigration status, many individuals who are who moved from one country to the United States, they might have limited knowledge of the healthcare system. And because of that, they might not be able to know how to navigate the healthcare system. And they might not be able to navigate how to talk to a provider, or how to ask questions regarding autism or regarding mental health. So that's one of the barriers that might be common in diagnosing autism. Lastly, another barrier would be the limited access to services. So this might be due to, like I said before, like the immigration status or not being able to navigate the healthcare system, and also financial concerns. Therapy is expensive and services are expensive, and many might not be able to afford that. So I wanted to talk more about mental health, since it's Mental Health Awareness Month. From this study here, they talked about how Latina individuals only seek medical care or a provider for only physical pain, rather than for mental health services. So like I said before, a lot of the Latina community focuses more on physical pain rather than mental health services. So they might not be aware that they're having mental health challenges, and that their child might be displaying autism services. So they might not be aware of that. According to this article here, they also talked about the perceptions of autism from families. And this article here gave like the perceptions of what they were thinking, what the community was thinking. And so regarding the perceptions of barriers, they included that they felt that expressing that a child had autism was it had a lot of embarrassment, shame, and rejection. So they're not aware of the mental health stigma. I'm sorry, they're not aware of how mental health is able to help individuals. Sorry, mental health services, sorry. So according to this article, here are some of the quotes that they used regarding mental health. So they talked about how they were able, or how they hid or covered them so they don't look at them, they don't take them to the park, or they do different activities. They had a fear of rejection and that she doesn't want to accept it. So according to these snippets from this article, they have a lot of denial and a lot of rejection regarding like the autism services. It's important that individuals are aware that these services are available to help them and to support them. So this article, like it kind of like, it was interesting to read what the Latina community perceives on mental health, and to read this, and we're able to like read this and get a better understanding of it. So some of the suggestions for improvement from Zuckman in 2014 was that regarding the healthcare providers, there could be more doctor visits. I know that in one of the articles I listed before, I didn't cite it here, but one of the articles that I listed before, they said that there was unclear expectations and unclear needs that were met. So regarding doctor's visits, one of the things could be like to have doctor visits that they're able to ask the families if they're comfortable with that, if they're comfortable with what the services that they forgot that day. Another thing would be having an explanation on what the symptoms of autism are, being informed of those symptoms, and having prenatal advice early on so they can be informed before they go into before they can already know what autism is beforehand. There should also be more information regarding autism, so having parenting classes and accessibility to these classes. Like I mentioned before, if there's a financial concern, then they need to be accessible towards the Latina community as well. Another thing that this article mentioned was that the writings that are given to the reports that are given to the parents, or any type of information that's given, should be written at a low level, or even translated to Spanish if they only speak Spanish, or even made into a video format in case they would like to watch it rather than read it. Another thing would be regarding healthcare, there should be more bilingual services, more bilingual translators and interpreters. And regarding this, there should also be knowledge and confidence in discussing autism with families. In this article, they also talked about how many of the providers didn't seem confident in their abilities to explain autism. And I know in different articles in school psychology and in teachers, they also talk about how they don't feel competent enough or confident enough to teach a child with autism or to help a child with autism. So these are all suggestions for improvement regarding this article. So these allow for improvement to better support families with autism and to support them. So what can we do? One thing that we can do is advocate. We hear a lot of, because of technology, there's more research coming out, and there's more self-advocates as well coming out that are able to advocate for the increase of support for the Latina community. We have Esperanza and Centro Hispano that are able to provide services or to provide more support for the Latina community. We should also give families a voice to speak what they're feeling, speak about the challenges and what they're facing. If we do these two things, we're able to break the stigma of mental health, be able to give them a voice and to advocate and to break the stigma. In order, as I said before, mental health is a big issue in the Latina community, and because they don't. Sorry, I'm stumbling on my words. Because mental health is a big issue in the Latina community, and many of them might not be aware that mental health is a serious concern and that there are services to support them. They might not be aware of that. So if we do these things and if we break the stigma, there can be better support for the Latina community and for autism. I'm really nervous. Thank you so much for listening to me today. I'm sorry that I stumbled on a lot of my words, but do you have any questions?
You're doing fine, Anabell. That was great. I learned more stuff, which is what I want to do when we have these conversations. Is I want to learn more stuff. I'm really interested in the in this intersection as you talk about the culture and stigma and mental health. Is I guess I'm curious, and this is for anybody. We're asking for opinions too. So let's make this a discussion. I could see there would be a other members of the Latina community being able to speak up, speak out, and share, and that would be an effective means of support. And then there's people like me who are trying to support all sorts of families. And so sometimes I'm not as culturally aware as I could be. Do you have any ideas, suggestions, or how someone who's not in the culture can help someone if they see a family who may have a child that's struggling or that we're worried about? Any ideas about how to best approach and talk to families?
Just wanted to open up to everybody else. I think that just being culturally aware and being culturally aware and making services available, like not just like in English, but also in Spanish, or having like another individual look over this and being able to provide like a safe and open environment for the family or for the student or for the child. I think having that would really open up a conversation with them and really make them comfortable speaking up, and also having like interpreters. Sorry, I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Absolutely. Are you able to access the chat, or would you like me to read questions off from the chat?
Yeah, I can access it. What role can schools play? So schools, is that question directed towards autism or towards like the mental health? I guess I can answer both. So regarding so regarding autism, I think that what I've read like in the past regarding autism is to keep up with the research or keep up with the literature. I know that there's new like research coming out regarding autism, and with the statistics that students with autism students of color with autism are diagnosed more now. I think that there's more literature that's going to be coming up to better support students of autism. So I think like keeping up with the research and like providing evidence-based practices which have been proved to be effective, I think maybe that can play a role to better support them. Does racism play a part in obstacles to services with autistic characteristics or emotional distress being perceived as behavioral issues? It's a good question. I'm not really sure on the literature on that. Does anybody else have any idea on this?
I'm going to jump in for a second. Anabell, I think you touched on a great concept of being culturally responsive. I'm sorry, I'm Janine, and I'm a bilingual speech pathologist in the Verona School District, and I've worked with early childhood for most of the last 15 years. but in through elementary school as well. And I think your perception of being really culturally responsive, I am myself also am not Latina, but I am a strong advocate for the community. And I was starting to type something in the chat, and I think I'll just erase it and just say it. I think having that presence in the community and being responsive, word of mouth is very powerful in this community. And if you have something to offer, build those connections with communities like Centro Hispano and Esperanza, and let them know what you got and see where you can plug your services in and bring your professionalism to those spaces, right? And I think this is a fantastic way to at least have some consciousness about it and start building those bridges with other groups. So thanks. I don't know if I totally answered the racism question. I think that's always an aspect.
Yeah.
But being culturally responsive really is the underlying truth with that, I think.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You said it better than I did. Thank you.
I'm just older, that's all.
Thank you again. Does anybody else have any questions? I also put my email here in case you have any questions or you need more information, or if you'd like me to send you the articles or anything at all. Like, there's my email, or any resources too about like Esperanza or Centro Hispano. Yeah.
Any other questions, discussion? Please feel free to put them in the chat. Feel free to unmute. I know I'm distracted by the beautiful day that we finally have outside, and so my brain is going between here and the sunshine. So we'll just take a moment here. I appreciate you so much doing work in this area. Is the Southern Regional Center has recently been able to hire a bilingual Spanish-English parent and an information referral specialist. She's fantastic and has taught me so much about how it is more, I know this sounds so stupid, that it's more than language. And that the value of presence, as I think Janine mentioned, is being out there and being in the community, building those relationships is really important. And so those are just some things that I have been learning, slowly, but learning.
Yeah, I know where I work at, I do my practicum at a school, and I speak Spanish, and having children who only speak Spanish come up to me and be like, oh, I can't really talk to my teacher because I don't speak the language. And I'm just like, oh wow, like that's like really like that's a concern. Like I feel really bad. And I remember one time like it was cold, and the student was they asked me if I could go get them like a sweater from the school, and I did. And so the student said that, you know, the student thanked me for that, and they said that they couldn't ask anybody because they weren't able to speak the language. And so that really like hurt me. And yeah, so I strongly believe that like having somebody there and being able to connect with students and connect with individuals and to be there for them is really important.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, I don't see anything else in the chat. So Anabell, thank you so very much for sharing what you are learning. And I think we all wish you best of luck in continuing this progress. There's so much more work that can be done and that's necessary to be done to be able to help all families. So thank you for what you are pursuing, for what you have already done. Just really appreciate your time as well. And good luck with the rest of your doctoral program.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and thank you all for coming too.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day.